Tonight's case isn't just about two mobsters. It's about how a criminal organization becomes a public spectacle. In 1980s New York, the Gambino crime family wasn't a movie plot, it was a system. It made money through racketeering, intimidation, gambling, and extortion, and survived because people stayed silent and witnesses were scared to talk. This story centers on New York City, especially Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan, where the Gambino family had influence and where law enforcement had to build cases that proved leadership responsibility, not just street-level crimes. But the most dangerous part wasn't just crime, it was the myth. Media coverage didn't simply report what happened, it taught the public how to see criminals, especially one man, John Gotti. The nickname Teflon Don turned real violence and exploitation into a storyline about a guy who couldn't be caught. John Joseph Gotti was born October 27, 1940, and became the boss of the Gambino crime family. He wasn't famous because he was the smartest criminal alive. He was famous because he understood image. Expensive suits, confidence, and constant attention. That public image helped distract from what organized crime really did to communities. Gotti's rise is tied to a major leadership change in the Gambino family. After the Castellano era ended, Gotti became boss, and organization's power struggle turned into public history. This matters because it showed that mafia wasn't random crime, it was a structured hierarchy with leadership changes that affected the whole system. The Gambino family operated like an enterprise. That's why prosecutors targeted the organization, not just one person. If you only focus on Gotti's personality, you miss the machine behind him. Gotti became one of the most publicly visible mafia figures in U.S. history, partially because he kept showing up in court and kept winning early. Those acquittals fueled the myth that he was untouchable, but public spectacle didn't mean the government had nothing, it meant investigators needed better evidence. Federal investigators built the case the slow way, with surveillance, wiretaps, and strategy like RICO cases that proved how leadership connected organized crime activities. That's what finally cut through the image. In 1992, John Gotti was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The myth didn't end because the media got bored, it ended because evidence overwhelmed the performance. And one of the biggest reasons the evidence worked was the man standing right next to him, his underboss, Sammy Gravano.
Sammy the Bull Gravano was born in 1945 and rose through the Gambino crime family until he became underboss to John Gotti. Known for being loyal and extremely dangerous, Gravano played a major role in his family's operations. However, in the early 1990s, he made the decision that changed everything. He chose to cooperate with the federal government and testify against Gotti. This is where the story becomes more complicated. Gravano's cooperation helped prosecutors secure convictions at the very top of the organization, which was huge for law enforcement. But it also raised an important ethical question. How does justice work when prosecutors rely on insider witness who have committed serious crimes themselves? Gravano admitted to being involved in multiple murders, yet his testimony earned him a reduced sentence. To many people, his deal seemed like a trading punishment for information. Gravano's story didn't end up with Gotti's conviction. After leaving New York, he entered witness protection and attempted to start a new life in Arizona. For a while, it seemed like he had completely stepped away from his past, but over time, their narrative began to shift again, moving from government witness to something much more complicated. According to reports from his later case in Arizona, Gravano and his son eventually became involved in a drug trafficking ring and pleaded guilty. This second chapter is important because it changes people and how they view his earlier cooperation. If he returned to crime after being given a second chance, it raises questions about his true motivations. Was his decision to testify about doing the right thing, protecting himself, or simply a strategic move to survive. The story of John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano is often remembered as dramatic and almost cinematic, but the real lesson goes beyond that. Media coverage can turn criminals into larger-than-life characters and trials into a form of entertainment. But organized crime is not just a story or a vibe. It's a system built on fear, control, corruption, and silence. Gotti shows that happens when an image and charisma become a shield that protects someone from consequences for a long time. Gravano shows what happens when that shield breaks from the inside. And the public reaction to both of them reveals how easily people can confuse style with innocence and storytelling with truth. In the end, this case isn't just about two individuals. It's about how society understands crime, justice, and the power of perception. Case closed.